All right, folks, so this week we are going to be sanitizing the freshwater tank and all of the plumbing lines inside of our RV. Now, I know that a lot of people either put this off or they just completely skip it, and that's because most of us have been using bleach to do this. But today, the whole purpose of this video isn't really to push a product on you, although we are going to use a specific product. The purpose of this is to just show a much faster and much easier way to get this done. Now, as many of you may already know, we use the Blu Tech water filtration system. We've got the AR3, which is a 3-filter system, and we switched over to that system for a few different reasons, but mostly because, number one, it works just as well, if not better, than any of the other water filter systems out there for your RV. And then number two, it is super light and super portable, which means you're not going to be breaking your back every time you need to get this thing out and connect it up or disconnect it and put it away for that travel day. But as good as that system is, it's not super effective if your entire plumbing system and your freshwater tank are dirty to begin with. So the water filtration system gives you clean water coming into your plumbing system and your freshwater tank, but the sanitizing process is what actually keeps that entire system clean. And instead of using bleach like we've all done in the past, instead, we're gonna be using the sanitizer packs from Blu Tech. Yes, these are sponsored videos, and Blu Tech provided all of this for us, but these packets are actually gonna save us a lot of time and effort when it comes to sanitizing our freshwater tank and all of the plumbing. So to really sell you on this, we're gonna talk about why bleach is just kind of a pain in the neck, and why those things that make using bleach a pain in the neck aren't really an issue using the Blu Tech sanitation packs. So what is that sticking point that really keeps us all from sanitizing our plumbing systems when we're using bleach? Well, the honest answer here is that it just takes way too freaking long to do. If you follow all the different guidelines out there, you're gonna see people recommending you let that bleach sit in your system for a minimum of 4 hours. And then there are people that'll say, listen, get that stuff in there and let it sit all night and then finish the flush and the whole procedure the next day. Come on, really? That's just a pain in the neck. Ain't nobody got time for that. However, using these sanitizer packs from Blu Tech makes the process a lot faster. For example, when we are sanitizing our freshwater tank, this stuff only needs to sit in the tank for about 15 minutes. When that 15 minutes is up, just like you normally would, you'd flush that tank out, get all of that sanitizer out of there, but it's much, much faster than using bleach. The same goes for sanitizing all of the plumbing lines in there. There's no bleach solution that has to sit in there for 4 hours or 8 hours or 12 hours, whatever that recommended time is. Essentially, the way this stuff is you introduce it into the system and then you run your faucets for about 15 minutes just to make sure all of the sanitizer has cleared out of the system, and you're done. Somebody please tell me that that is not a faster, easier process. And then as a bonus, this stuff is actually a lot safer than bleach. Bleach can lead to, well, just that bleachy smell and taste in your system if you don't get it flushed out properly, and that taste and smell can just last a really long time. Now, this stuff is safe, it's NSF certified, and it's approved by the EPA. So there's nothing in here that's gonna harm you if for some reason you don't get a proper flush out of your system. Now, before we get started, let's talk about how much of this bleach-free sanitizer from Blu Technologies we actually need. So in this one packet right here, we've actually got 2 liquid packages of this Sanitizing cleaner. And each of these packets, so we got 2 packets, this packet is good for 20 gallons and this packet is good for 20 gallons. So what that means is if you got a 40-gallon freshwater tank, you're gonna need 20 gallons plus 20 gallons for a total of 40 gallons. Now, we have an 80-gallon tank, which means we're gonna have to use 20 gallons, and I've got another package of this, so we'll be able to get our entire 80-gallon tank sanitized with 4 of these packets. And then Blu Tech actually recommends that you sanitize your freshwater tank completely separate from sanitizing the rest of your plumbing system. So what that means is we're gonna need another packet, a third packet, which again has 2 smaller packages inside of it. We're gonna need this to sanitize all of the plumbing lines in here. So all of the plumbing, back here in behind the wet bay, everything that goes throughout your rig, and then everything that goes to your faucets. So we're gonna need 1 set of packets for the tank and then 1 packet to do everything else. And even though this is a 2-step process, it's still going to be easier and faster than doing all of this with bleach, because we have 15 minutes of running this packet through all of the plumbing lines. We have 15 minutes of soaking our freshwater tub with this stuff. So that's only a half an hour, guys. And then obviously you've got all of the setup time and the flushing time, but all of that, guess what? That's the same as if we were doing this with bleach. So at a minimum, if you're using bleach currently and you're doing this or you're letting it set for 4 hours, you're saving yourself 3.5 hours. To me, this is really just a no-brainer. All right, one last thing, a bit of advice before we get to the actual process of sanitizing everything is I would recommend, number 1, if you have a non-Blu Tech water softener, I would recommend disconnecting that water softener before you go through this process. And it's not so much that I don't trust the Blu Tech sanitizing packs to not destroy that water softener. I would just recommend that you go ahead and use the process for your specific water softener to get it sanitized. There's just no reason to take that chance. And then the second recommendation I have here is I would just turn off your water heater for this process, whether that's a tank water heater or whether it's a tankless water heater. I just think that turning that water heater off during this process is the safest way to get them sanitized without somehow causing damage to that water heater. Now, make sure you leave that water heater online, meaning don't bypass it. You want this sanitizer to go through the water heater. I just would recommend you turn it off first. So that means if you have a dual source water heater that uses both propane and electric, go ahead and turn off the electric and the propane side of that, just so there's no way for that thing to kick on while you're doing this. All right, so now that we got all that out of the way, the first step of this whole process is to simply turn the water off to your rig. The next step here, and it's something that really makes this whole process a lot easier, is we just want to take that last stage filter off on your filtration system. You may have a 2-stage filter, a 3-stage filter, 4-stage, it doesn't matter. Just take the last one off. So in our case, in the AR3 system, it's our Tasty filter. So we're just gonna take that filter canister off of there. We're gonna remove the filter, and then we're gonna pour in however much sanitizer we need directly into that canister. And again, for us, we have an 80-gallon tank, so we're gonna pour 4 of these packets in there, and then we're gonna screw that canister back onto our AR3 system. So now we simply start filling the freshwater tank. Now, my system is probably gonna be completely different from yours, so however you fill your freshwater tank, just go through that same process. Now, realize this is gonna take a little while to fill that tank, especially for us, 80 gallons, I'm getting about, I don't know, 2.3 or 2.4 gallons a minute, so that's gonna take a little while to do. You do the math. The point here is it's going to take a while. So while we're waiting on that, one thing that I want to talk about is what do we do if we don't have one of these fancy external systems? Maybe you've only got a single filter system that was already installed in your system, or maybe you've got a smaller RV or one of those older RVs that actually doesn't have any filter internal to the RV itself, and you're simply using one of those inline Camco filters, which, by the way, if that's what you're doing, I totally recommend you get a different system. Those things really don't filter out anything more than just your basic sand and dirt, whereas this Blu Tech system pretty much filters out everything, right? Including most of your bacterias and viruses. So we never connect to any water source. I don't care if it's in a campground or if we're moose docking at somebody's house, we always connect our AR3 system because, well, as we've said many times, we're water snobs and we really like good drinking water. So anyway, back to the point. if you've only got one of those inline Camco filters that you use outside of your RV, you can still go through this process. Now, as far as I can tell, Blu Tech does not have an official way to do this, but what I would recommend is that you just simply disconnect your hose from the hose bib and then pour the contents of the sanitizer directly into the hose. Now, that's not exactly the same as pouring it into the canister on the filter system, but I think it's probably a pretty good, safe alternative if you don't have one of these canister systems. Once you've got that water poured into the hose, then you just simply turn the water back on and either fill up your freshwater tank or run inside and turn on all of your faucets. It's gonna do essentially the same thing. Okay, like I said, it's gonna be a while before my freshwater tank is filled, so I got better things that I can do than standing here looking like a clown. So I'm gonna go do those things. When that thing's full, I'll come back. Okay, now that we've got the tank full of water, there's one step that I recommend doing in here that Blu Tech doesn't necessarily mention in their instructions, and that is to just go ahead and turn that freshwater pump on and open up one of the faucets inside of your RV until you get a little bit of foamy water out of it. And that's not so much to make sure that we are sanitizing that specific line to that faucet. What we're trying to do here though is introduce that sanitizer solution into your freshwater pump itself. Because the reality is if you put all that sanitized water in the freshwater tank, but you don't get it into the pump, then you're gonna leave the plumbing line from the tank to the pump and the pump itself unsanitized. And that's obviously not what we want to do. So just go ahead, turn that pump on, open a faucet until you see that foamy water come out, turn it off, and then all we need to do is wait 15 minutes for that sanitizer to do its magic in the tank and in the pump. Once we're done waiting that 15 minutes, then all we got to do is completely drain our freshwater tank. And guess what? Because we're using a totally different sanitizer than bleach, there's no reason to go do the sniff test, the taste test, anything like that. Basically, all we need to do, again, is fill that freshwater tank up with fresh water, drain it all back out, and hey, we're good to go. And now we're ready to move on to sanitizing everything else in the RV. So basically, that's just all of the plumbing lines that run all the way throughout your RV to make sure that they're as clean and as sanitized as possible. And this process is even easier, right? So again, no waiting for 8, 12 hours for this stuff. Basically, all we're gonna do is we're gonna start it out kind of the same way we did with the tank. We're gonna take that last stage filter off of our filtration system, and then we're gonna pour in 2 packets of the sanitizer. And then of course, put that canister right back on your filtration system. Now, all we have to do is simply go inside, turn on every faucet in your RV. So bathroom sinks, right? If you got more than one, make sure you turn them both on. Turn on that shower, turn on the kitchen sink. Anything that you need to sanitize, turn on all of those faucets. And all we need to do is let that run for either 15 minutes or until you no longer see that foamy water coming out. Once you no longer have the foamy water coming out, we know that that system has been sanitized and completely flushed. Now, all we've got left is to simply replace our last stage filter, and guess what? We are all done. You can get all of this done probably in an hour, maybe an hour and a half if you're moving slowly. It's certainly a lot better than the process that we have to go through with the bleach. All right. So again, the purpose of this video wasn't really to sell you any products. Although again, this video is sponsored by Blu Technology. If you guys buy something, we do get a commission. I get all that. That's fine. But that's not really the purpose that we do these videos for you guys. We do these videos for you guys to show you good products and just to generally make the RV life a little bit easier, because we're firm believers in if you can make the routine stuff fast and easy, it makes this RV life a lot easier to live. Now, having said all that, if you do use our links down below, I'll put links down there for our AR system, I'll put a link down there for the sanitizer system, but if you do use those links, just keep in mind, you're gonna get a 7% discount. Now, there is a minimum purchase, I think, for Blu Tech to get that 7% discount. So just keep that in mind when you're using those links. And I would also say that this sanitizer stuff, it's not cheap. It's gonna be about $21, $22 for a single package. Again, this package includes 2 packages inside. Each of those packages is good for 20 gallons, but this is gonna cost you about 22 bucks for one of these packages. So for us, for 3 of these, $22 times 3, what is that, 66 bucks. You know, it's recommended that you do this about every 6 to 12 months. We're closer to the 12-month kind of idea there because we do use this RV full time. We live in it and we're constantly running water through the system, just like you would at home. So again, it's recommended that you do this about every 6 to 12 months. So even if you've got to spend 60 or 70 bucks on these sanitizer packs every 6 months, or once a year is really what I recommend. Once a year, is that really a lot of money to make sure that your entire system is sanitized, it's clean, and that you don't have to spend 4, 6, 8, 12 hours on this process? I think that's well worth the money that we're going to spend on these packets. So again, use our links down below and you're gonna get a 7% discount off of anything that you purchase, obviously keeping in mind that minimum purchase requirement. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this video. I truly believe that this is a much better way to sanitize your freshwater system and your freshwater tank versus the bleach system that takes forever. So if you did like this video, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and then make sure you hit that bell button while you're down there to get notified of all of our future videos. And as always, until that future video, happy camping and stay safe out there, guys.